Kathy, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Oh, pleasure. Lovely to be here, Anna. Thank you.
Not at all. So, everyone, this is Kathy Soulsby. She set up Personally Virtual in 2014, providing high level freelance EA support. It's now a team of 30 VAs supporting one man bands right up to some household names. Kathy has also authored 2 books and has a productivity podcast. We will touch on both the books and the podcast. But firstly, on that, please could you talk us through sort of how you came about to writing the 2 books and yeah, how you did it?
Oh, yeah. So the first book was not an accident, that's the wrong way to describe it. But what I found was when I started doing VA work, I was really busy doing lots of billable hours, but my brain wasn't necessarily that strained by things. So I kind of had some brain power to spare, and I started writing blogs about what it's like being a VA, and going from being an employed PA to being a freelance VA. And those blogs just kind of grew and grew and grew. And then I was chatting to a coach, and I kind of went, I've got these blogs and I'm a bit bored. I'm like, I'm not bored, I'm really tired, I'm working really hard. But I think when you first set up, you take on any work because you need the money. And actually, my EA roles were always quite complex, quite meaty, not that traditional EA roles. And my brain just wasn't stretched, so I kind of went, do you know what, I could turn this into a book, so I'm going to turn this into a book. And that first one I did around billing 25 hours a week, which is hardcore if you're a VA. And I would do an hour every morning. I'd do 8 till 9. Before I looked at anything else, I would write. And I had, next to my desk, I literally had a timetable with, right, this week I'm going to write this chapter and then I'm going to edit that chapter. Next week I'm going to write this chapter, I'm going to edit that chapter. Might not have been a week per chapter, that's insane. But I worked back from a deadline that I gave myself because otherwise it would never have happened.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's kind of how it came about. And I also did this online challenge called the 10-Day Book Writing Challenge, which is by a lovely lady called Alison Jones. She still does it. I did that for both books, actually. But it basically gets you thinking about what is the structure, what other books are out there in the same vein, who are your readers. It just takes you through basically creating a book proposal.
Yeah.
And from there, obviously, you can then start breaking that down, project managing it. So that was how the first one came about. And the second one, so that was 2017, that one. And the second one has always been in my mind, and honestly, I probably wanted to write it in about 2019. So the first book is what it's like going from being a PA to being a VA, and all the things that no one tells you that all of a sudden you go, what? Yeah. So that was the first one. The second one is more designed for people who are thinking about working with a VA, so the clients and the prospective clients. Yeah. And I really could and should have written that in 2019, but I was knackered. There was no way. And I was still knackered 2021. I was also going to co-write it with a lady called Annabelle Kay, who is a legal expert. And GDPR happened about this sort of time as well, and then Brexit. So even if I had had time, she did not have time. And in the end, about 2023, I went, do you know what, stuff, I'm going to do it anyway. And I just got Annabelle to do a chapter to cover the legal side of things and the data stuff that I really am not an expert in and didn't really want to write about, in case people thought I knew what I was talking about. So, the horror. So so she just did a chapter and I did the rest, which was fine actually. But that one had been brewing for a really long time. By that point, my business was very different. So I wasn't doing so much of the doing anymore, and I really struggled to write in and around the day job that time. So I'd take a week and I'd go lock myself in an Airbnb with my dogs for a week and do, a handful of chapters, and I basically worked it back from when the editor could get it done and kind of went, right, okay, I need to lock myself in a room here. I think I did do some of it at home, but I definitely wrote better when I was on holiday.
Yeah.
I kind of literally locked myself away. I had a system with my VA. Right, okay, end of the day, send me a summary of what's gone on, but otherwise I need to not have my Slack on or my emails or anything, because I just go down a little rabbit hole of normal day job. So that was how the second one came about, and that was 2023, I think. I can't even remember now. 2023, I think, yeah.
Gosh, you did them both alongside your job as well. So, for people that don't know, the first book was Virtually Painless, which has gone around the Valley Talk WhatsApp group. So I know you kindly gifted, I think 6 or 7 in the end
Yeah.
of these. They have gone back onto the group saying,
Oh,
this book I was given is now being it's now been read. Who else would like it? It's been sent around. I think it's really helping everyone get to grips with the reality of it, and obviously a funny story helps people take on all the information, I think.
yeah, and I think so. It was deliberately written not to be a how-to, but it kind of is an accidental
Mm.
how-to, I think.
Yeah.
What I wanted to counterbalance was some of the, and it wasn't so bad then, it seems to be worse now, but these sort of online coaches who kind of go, oh, make £10,000 in a day, and all the, dodgy Daily Mail articles going, oh, you too can buy, 17 houses if you're a virtual assistant. It's like, well,
Yeah.
okay, but, that may not be realistic for everybody.
Yeah.
It's not realistic for me. I don't have 17 houses. So I think it was a bit of a, what's the reality like day to day? Because I also met quite a few VAs on my journey, some of whom went back into corporate life because they hated it, because they
Mm.
didn't know what it was going to be like, or they thought they knew what it was going to be like, and it turned out to be very different.
Yeah.
So it's just that, and I thought because my job was home based, my job was a really weird split between 2 different employers, but it was organised between them, kind of thing,
Yeah.
'cause neither of them needed a whole one. So I was about as close to being a VA as you could be without being a VA. So in my head, I went, oh, well, I'm practically a VA already. No, no. And I do have calls with people go, oh, well, I work from home all the time anyway, so I kind of know what it's about. And you go, no. Your location is the least important part of being a virtual assistant. It literally doesn't matter. Um, and you could have worked from home for 20 years. It still won't be the same job as being a PA.
Mm.
That's just not it. So
Mm.
yeah, that's kind of what inspired me to write it, I think.
No, I think it's obviously gone down well with the members. So I think you've definitely written some words that have helped lots of people so far. Just on that, what would you say the most important sort of aspect of a VA is? So, you mentioned that bit, your location isn't very important, but what is the most important thing to have and to be good at in order to sort of succeed as a VA?
I would say networking.
Mm.
And that doesn't necessarily mean going out to networking breakfasts, although for some people that's brilliant. I
Yeah.
certainly did a load of that when I first started. But for me, it's all about your network,
Yeah.
which for most people who have been PAs or admins out in the world, you've got that LinkedIn network, or
Mm.
you've got a network of, I once found a client walking the dog, right? Just happened to be walking the dog and chatting about what I was doing. He's like, oh, well, yeah, my business could do with a bit of help. I'm a bit rubbish at this.
Yeah.
So you're, I'm so rare that it's not my dog's barking. I love it.
I'm so sorry.
That's
My
what,
dog is normally like really good. Rusty!
yeah, you see, mine are not. They appear in the book quite a lot, not being very well behaved. So it's actually miraculous that we've got this far and they haven't barked.
It's
Or,
just as soon as you're on a call, they're like, "Oh, let's disrupt something here." But
yeah.
I could hear him getting all revved up, so he's obviously heard something. Sorry, we're back. We're back in the room.
Yeah, no, so for me, it's all about network. And what I advise anyone who is kind of thinking of making the move from employment to freelance life is while you're still in employment, go through everyone you have ever met and connect with them on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
For some bizarre reason, even though I had no notions of ever going freelance, I weirdly did this when I was employed, which
Yeah.
meant that when I went freelance, I had a great network on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And I just think there's the online, there's the Facebook, the Instagram, the LinkedIn, which depending on what kind of VA work
Yeah.
you're interested in doing is where you're going to pick your audience, right? For
Mm.
me, we're quite B2B, so LinkedIn is the obvious one. But there are bigger networks. If you're a mum and you meet all the other mums at the school gate, that's a network.
Yeah.
There's networks everywhere. You just have to look for them, and it doesn't necessarily mean schlepping to B&I at 6:30 on a Wednesday morning every week. There's networks all around you. You just need to kind of
Use them.
use them and be really aware of them. I think it's really
Yeah.
easy for people to assume that I assume my friends know what I do. And I had one of my friends help me with a bit of a project, and she was kind of, oh, I didn't know you did this. It's like, yeah, I've been doing this 11 years. How did you not know this? Or, they just didn't understand quite the nuances of how it worked. And I
Yeah.
think we don't talk enough about what we do,
Yeah.
because our friends probably will never be clients and probably should never be clients, but that doesn't mean they don't know people
Yeah.
themselves. Right?
The networking, the word personal brand and the word networking is creeping up so much. But I think a lady that I spoke to on this sort of interview, she met a lady at the school gates, just like you, and she was saying, "Oh, I'm so busy struggling with my workload," and she was like, "Well, I can help," and it was that simple a conversation. But
Yeah.
um, I think you're right in what you say about the networks and your friends not necessarily knowing what you do, because I think when you get to a social situation with your friends, you don't sort of start saying, "Oh, for the client, I did this today," and I think they don't underestimate what you do, but they don't know the full extent of how, and the sort of the fact that we can help anyone with anything, more or less, because our skill set is just sort of so broad that there isn't really a time that we can say, "No, I can't help you with that." We'll be like, "Oh, let me try, I can put you in touch with someone," or whatever it might be. But I think it's almost like, don't be afraid to bore someone with what you do, because actually they might find it really interesting and that might be exactly what they're looking for.
Yeah.
But yeah, networking is a really interesting one. There are networks everywhere, like you say. But just going back to your VA agency journey, I mean, how did you start considering hiring an associate? How did that process work?
Well, when I first set up, I had no real notions of having an agency at all. I
Mm.
mean, to be honest, I was relatively terrified about the whole just going freelance thing. I
Yeah,
was single, it was only me paying the mortgage
yeah,
and dog food. So it was kind of you know, failing wasn't really an option. And it, the first bit of associate work came about. I put an advert in my local village newsletter, which not a professional bit of network. I literally did
yeah,
it. It was almost a charity donation. That's the best way to describe it. It's like, this is a cute thing. I dig it out whenever I need a plumber.
yeah,
Do you know what? I'll throw 30 quid at that and stick an advert in.
yeah.
Because, especially now, what we do is, unlikely to be local people.
Mm.
But bizarrely, somebody got in touch and said, "Oh, I need a VA." I was like, "Really?" I mean,
Yeah.
yes, okay, great. But at the time, I was maxed out, and the particular type of work that he wanted wasn't something that I was particularly that interested in doing. So it felt very much like it was very easy, because previously work had come to me because people knew me through my network. And at that point, it's quite difficult to go, "Do you know what? Me, myself, I don't have any capacity, but my associate can do it." And
Mm.
actually, this guy didn't know me from a bar of soap, he just saw my advert. So there's no need for it to be me. It could be anybody. So I
Yeah.
took that opportunity to find somebody who didn't mind doing that kind of work, and that was the first one. After that, there was a weird hiatus where it became a bit trickier, because people know you from your network and they're like, "Can you help me with this?" And
Yes.
the hardest point is, actually, I can't, but we can. That's
Mm.
a real leap, I find. Much more so than when you get into bigger numbers of people. That first bit is the real tricksy bit. Um, so I had somebody get in touch, and again, they knew me. I'd worked with them for years and years, and I just kind of had to go, "I do not have capacity. I am maxed out, but I could find you somebody amazing."
Yeah.
And luckily, I had just the amazing girl who was in the right industry, absolutely fabulous. She's still working with that client now. She's a team lead. She's a force in nature, and it just kind of worked. And then she was getting too busy, so we put somebody else in, and that's
Mm.
now a team of 12, I think, in that one client. So yeah, it snowballed from there, really. But that first one, because there was no risk to my reputation, because this man didn't know me,
Mm.
it's
Yeah.
somewhat easier, I think. I then reverted back to accidentally saying yes to things for myself when I clearly didn't have time to do them.
Mm.
Um, and it was a sort of stuttery couple of years of, "I am genuinely too full, I can't do this, somebody else is going to have to do it."
Mm.
And then you just get in the habit of going, "Yeah, it's not me, it's somebody else." And yeah, now I don't really do any client work, to be honest.
It's really interesting that it sounds like it sort of naturally happened in a way. And like you said, you had that amazing girl who you could put forward. And I suppose half the challenge of running a VA agency is finding the right team, because you've just got to find someone who suits the client but also works well to your standards. So in like the VA agency world, do you have your own clients or do you manage the associates now? Sort of how much time is spent on the oversee of the associates, or do they do their own thing and then you have your own clients? How does that side of it work?
These days, I do very little client work. I still work with my longest standing client because he's really easy. I've been working with him for 11 years. And that I literally bill 10 hours a month. Everything else is finding new business, finding new associates, keeping on top of the existing clients, doing podcasts, marketing, all that kind of stuff. So I do occasionally do a bit of holiday cover for the team if we can't cover it elsewhere, or it's more sensible for me to do it for just reasons of getting to hang out with a client for a couple of weeks when I don't have that much day-to-day interaction with them. So sometimes it will be sensible for me to go, oh, do you know what, I haven't spent any time with them lately, so yeah, why don't I do that cover? But generally, I don't do that much client work. There was a tipping point at which I did nearly have a nervous breakdown where I was still billing the same number of hours and trying to do the management in the margin. And gradually, excuse me, the balance has just changed. And I've handed over all my client stuff to other people. So, yeah.
Because actually having a podcast is sort of a job in itself as well. So you do like to load it on.
Yes.
Yeah, you can't. To be fair, I think as an assistant, you're sort of you're born to be busy, and at the idea of not being busy, you'd just be like, oh, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do?
Yeah.
But I think that's probably, you're in a position now where you can look for new business. But are you looking to keep growing the team, or do you just like to keep new business sort of on the peripheral? So if one drops off, you can get another one.
Always up for growth. Yeah. I discovered that I am actually quite ambitious, having never really thought I was. So I'm always looking to grow. We have grown every single year since we started, even despite a bit of a COVID kind of plummet. We still managed to grow that year. So year on year, I want to keep growing, really.
It's incredible. I just can't believe there's 30 of you. That is incredible. Do you have Christmas dues? Do you all get online, or do you all meet up? I don't know where in the world everyone is.
Kind of. So we have, we kind of have teams within teams, because some of our client teams are multiple people. And then there's the wider team. So we organise ourselves in Slack. That's kind of where we live, if you like. Yeah. So everybody on the team is in Slack. At the moment, we're having Kindness Month for April. So we've got like a kindness channel in Slack, and we're doing lots of nice feedback and bits of charity stuff. And we've done laughter yoga. We've got some Kijung later today with someone who's coming in to do that. So we do that kind of stuff as a team. Christmas is a tad more tricky. So within our client teams, we will have a Christmas get together for sure. It depends what it is. Last year I think we had a big Christmas quiz, and we actually cheated to some extent, and we did the same quiz for several clients. We've now got people that overlap, so I won't be able to pull that off. But it was good at the time. But yeah, we do try and do something for Christmas, but the team are scattered all over the world. So we will never be able to get together in person. We do when we can. Several of us do get together when we're able to. But realistically, you've got people in Scotland, people in France, people in Spain, people in Thailand, people in the States. Even finding a time for a Christmas party with the States and Thailand is somewhat
hard. Oh, there's so many of you. I think it's incredible. And I had something. Laughter yoga. We did that for an old Christmas do. Actually, we had laughter yoga as the activity before, and before the lady came in to run it, everyone was like, "Oh, this is gonna be terrible." It was brilliant.
It's good fun. It's good fun. Yeah. It was, I got absolutely hysterical for no reason. It was, and I've done it before, so I kind of thought, that'd be really nice. It's just a bit different, and a bit of a nice thing to do for the team to, pay someone to come in and do a couple of things. And, for some reason, I was having a bit of a funny week. And, sometimes hysteria is not so much I'm having a lovely time as, this is horrendous. So I did get quite hysterical at some points and was crying with laughter. But it was good. Yeah, it was really good.
It's nice doing something like that as a team at Christmas, doing something a bit different. But thank you for that. And then thirdly, I've got, what advice would you give to someone starting to think about hiring an associate? I spoke to a couple of assistants, PaliTalk member assistants, and they've been doing the VA outreach to find new clients, and suddenly they found that they have more clients than they have hours in the day, which you can relate to. And one of the ladies was like, I want to, I don't know how to, I don't know where to start. And I suppose it's sort of what advice would you give someone at that sort of breaking point of, do I turn the client down or do I take someone on? I suppose, yeah. What's the best advice for those early stages?
I think if you're, excuse me, I've really got a croaky throat today. I don't know what's going on. Um, if the other option is to say no to the client, then you haven't really got a lot to lose by saying yes, and it will be my team member Bob
Yeah.
who's doing that work. And then it's always a bit of a chicken and egg in that you do you look for the client first or do you look for the associate first?
Yeah.
Or do you do both at the same time? And there is no right answer to that. So I have what I call a bench of associates who I keep in touch with, and when the right job comes in, I will look through my bench and go, oh, they'd be good for that, they'd be good for that, and I'll get on the phone and go, have you got any capacity at the moment? I had one lady who was on my bench for like 4 years. Every time I rang her and said, I've got this great gig for you, she'd be like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm full. And she would email me every so often going, I've just finished this project, have you got anything? I'm like, no, not really. 4 years this went on, and eventually we did get to work together. So it is kind of a long burn, and then obviously I now have existing team members, some of whom might have capacity for a job.
Yeah.
So I will look through those people, but that is again where the power of networking comes in, right?
Yeah.
My first associates came because I networked with people in a Facebook group, so I got to know people really well. I got to understand that their values are the same as mine,
Yeah.
that they were working with that kind of client, and got to trust them a bit. So I kind of had that VA network a bit for my first few hires, if you like. But if you have to go out there and look for somebody, I would just say be really, really specific what you're looking for. You know, you're obviously going to have some baselines in place, like, you know, you're going to have to be ICO registered and have insurance and all that kind of stuff. But then there's something for me about, you know, so I do put out application forms every so often, and we have I wouldn't say it's niche exactly. We are old school EAs, so I look for corporate diary experience, which is actually pretty common in the VA industry. But I narrow that down even further and say you must have 5 years experience in financial services or consultancy, which, you know, brings it down again. And actually, if you put an application form out, you know, a Google form or a, when I use ClickUp, but, you know, type form, whatever you like, you can put that out and you can get a lot of information just from a form. A lot of which will be they can't spell, or I've asked this question and they've answered a completely different question, or, you know, they've put this link in here but it doesn't work, or whatever it may be. You're getting data even before you've spoken to them. But the more specific you can be in that advert and that form, the less, you know, you want to funnel people down, because you're looking for, the hardest thing to find is a bit of a generalist, because there are billions of them, right? So, you know, you really need to go, okay, well, I need this niche thing, whether that's a particular piece of software that they can use, or a particular industry they've worked in, or maybe particular availability. If you're, you know, we have some clients in the US, so very occasionally I'm trying to find someone who doesn't mind working a bit later.
Yeah. Timings.
So yeah, whatever it may be, but the more specific you can be, the fewer applications you have, which sounds worse, but is actually a better thing, because, you know, you don't want to have to talk to 20 people, you probably want to talk to 6.
Yeah.
And then the main thing is just trying to work out if their values are the same as yours. You know, are they going to deliver to the client as you would? Are they professionally set up? Do they understand how a professional VA job works? And it is tricky, right? You know, sometimes I have brand new VAs who join as associates, and I'd rather not, but very occasionally somebody comes along who's got the most, sorry, my shutter blowing shut. Oh my God, it's like a gunshot. But they don't understand VAing, you know, that whereas somebody who's been a VA for a couple of years understands how timesheets work, how client management works, how, you know, like stupid things like, you know, I've had brand new associates who will ask the client how our timesheet system works. It's like, yeah, it's not the client's timesheet system, that's our timesheet. You know, it's silly stuff like that. So if you are new to hiring an associate, I would say don't go for somebody who's brand new to being a VA, because not only are you going to have to navigate the newness of them, you're going to have to somewhat hold their hand through the being a VA thing. Where I would go for someone who's already a solid VA, who's got clients on the go, who understands the process and the job. I would say,
Yeah,
for the first one or two. And also get recommendations from other people, right?
yeah, exactly.
Network. You know, I have, there's several like, agency owners, and you know, we do similar things. And very often, you know, one of them will message me, or I'll message them, going, do you know anyone who's really good at X, Y, Z? And they'll go, oh yeah, actually, so and so's probably got a bit of capacity. I'll ask.
Mm.
And don't be afraid to use your network for that. So yeah, you can get people that way as well, and then they're recommended. You know, they're not just
Yeah, exactly.
randoms from the internet, as it were.
Yeah. And I think what you said about being really specific on a Google form or however you're receiving the applicants is actually really nice for the people applying because they know this isn't for me, I'm not wasting my time, delete the tab. And then it's really nice for you because the applicants you do receive are, well, they've got the right qualifications but all the right experience. Because I think the vague job posts, I think, are why people get so frustrated with the job market because they spend so much time on the application and then someone will come back and say we haven't got enough experience or whatever it might be, but the job post hadn't specified sort of experience levels. And I think that's why when people get so frustrated with the huge amounts of applications and then the lack of responses as an applicant, it's just because of this exact reason. And if they put more time into sort of the specifics like you do, then it would sort of solve that problem because you'd be like, that's not for me, that's not for me, that's not for me. And when you do find one for you, you'd be like, perfect, I'll spend half an hour and do that application properly.
Yeah, and I
Um,
hope that for a VA associate, because it's not an employed role, right? So it's a
mm,
subcontract role.
mm,
I would say an application form for me shouldn't take more than 15 minutes.
mm,
I would say, and you know, you're not sending CVs.
mm,
Freelancers don't really have them. I would say send me a link to your LinkedIn profile and your
yeah,
website, and that's
mm,
what I'm looking at.
yeah,
Um, because for what we do, actually your background is quite important because it's senior EA role.
mm,
For
yeah,
somebody who is more of a tech VA, they might have a portfolio, which would be more appropriate. It's kind of what projects have you worked on? What, you know, have you
mm,
taken clients from A to B? That might be a more appropriate thing to put in an application form. But for me, actually, I can get a lot from LinkedIn. My
mm,
challenge comes when somebody is quite new to the VA industry and they haven't got a good LinkedIn profile because they sort of never got around to it in their corporate
yeah,
days. And then I'll say, do you want to send me a CV? But also, I think as a hirer, I think it's polite to decline people if they're not the right fit. I'll always offer feedback. You know, if I'm
mm,
saying, sorry, you're not the right fit, or I've got people that are a better fit, if you want feedback, let me know. And
yeah,
some people do and some people don't. And, you know, I'm kind of fine either way. But I think it's really frustrating when you apply for things and it goes into this void that you
mm.
kind of go, but I was perfect with that. I don't get
I
it.
know exactly, and I can,
Qualification.
yeah, I can totally see the frustration. But I'm just one more thing on LinkedIn. I'm aware I don't want to take up too much of your time, but the LinkedIn's an interesting one because you said that when you were employed, you had already built up a network on LinkedIn, was sort of as unconsciously. But have you found that it's just come on leaps and bounds, or is it just a very busy platform for our industry, or how have you found the last 10 years as such?
I still find it helpful, and
Mm,
I find it, and I do post religiously every day. I am not as good as I should be at
that's
commenting on other.
good.
Yeah, that's good, but I am not very good at remembering to comment on other people's stuff and do that. That is where I fall down wildly.
Mm,
For me, what I see the success of LinkedIn for me is that um, people that I used to know, you know, I once had this guy who I used to work with, I don't know, 20 years ago, 25 years
yeah.
ago, and he literally pinged me a message on LinkedIn and went, I'm ready for you now. Like, no hello, no nothing. But he had just been seeing my posts over the
Yeah,
years, knew what I did, and kind of went, right, I'm now ready for one of those things. I need a
yeah,
VO. That's the person because I know her and I've seen her post. And for me, that's kind of the thing. And
yeah,
also, you know, people do tag me into things. Sometimes it's right for us, sometimes it isn't. But you know, I've absolutely had people come to me because of connections on LinkedIn,
mm,
and so I still find it a really helpful platform. I
yeah,
don't do any sort of work social media client facing on any other platform.
mm,
I post enough on Facebook on my work page that people would know I'm not dead, but that's literally the sum of its parts. So that's it's just you know, every so often one of my team will just post something like, ah, she's alive. But you know, I don't think clients will come to me via Facebook. But I do use Facebook for a lot of VA networking. So actually,
yeah,
a good chunk of my networking is with other VAs and PAs because we have some PAs and EAs as clients.
Yeah.
You know, they bring us in to work, so they might support like the CEO or the MD or whatever, and we work for the next layer down. So actually I do a lot of networking with PAs for that reason, because quite often they are our client. Right? So lots of EA networking, PA networking, face-to-face and Facebook is quite good for that. There are some pretty good groups where you get some good discussions. So
Yeah.
LinkedIn
Facebook is it is amazing. I'm always sort of blown away by the numbers that Facebook accumulates. I think LinkedIn for me is like you can sort of handle it. You've got your network, and then you go into Facebook and you're like, oh my god, it's a whole new, like you type into the group section, I don't know, virtual assistant or a remote executive assistant, and it's like groups. And sometimes I'm like, whoa, I'll maybe do that one tomorrow. But I just think it's amazing that, like you said about the network, there's so many people to sort of message, connect with, have a call with, and just sort of grow that network here and globally. But thank you for those. I feel like we've done like 5 questions. But just going on to the quick fire round. So just whatever comes to your mind when I ask these questions is about
dangerous with me.
10 or so. So firstly, what's your go-to AI tool?
ChatGPT.
Everyone loves it. I'm getting better at telling my machine what's good and what's not, because apparently you have to train the bot.
Yes, I have been known to be quite sarcastic, and it's been okay with that. It's much better than Siri is not good at that. Siri
doesn't like it. No.
No, she will literally break my heart. She'll be like, "I'm only trying to help Kathy." Oh, sorry.
Really?
Yeah, I did say rude things to her, to be fair, but yeah, the robots are going to get me when the uprising happens.
Oh my god, I love that. They'll come after you when they've got legs.
Yeah.
What is your favourite podcast at the moment? Not including yours, but you can talk to us about yours, because I'd like to know more about that too.
So I am a true crime podcast girl. So I love a bit of true crime. So my favourite one at the moment is Red Handed, which is a British podcast, true crime related. It makes me feel quite old because they are, I don't know, in their 30s or whatever, and they'll start talking about music, and I'm like, what? My music basically stopped once the 90s finished. But that's mine. And my podcast is Productivity Nerd, which is all about getting stuff done more efficiently, so you have time to have a life. Because
that's what it's all about.
Yeah. So we review books. I have authors come and talk about their productivity books, and we also cover techniques. So things like the stack method. And, so there are mini pods which are like 3 minutes long, where I will just witter on about something very quickly. And then there are the longer ones, which is either an interview or I will talk through a book to one of my team. So I'm kind of explaining the book, like instead of you having to read it, and then we're talking about it. And we just had a meeting before this. One of my team said, "Oh, I just listened to your podcast. It was the one where you and Claire talked about Claire's funeral." And I was like, "What?" I thought that was the subject matter. What was the subject matter? Was it Stephen Covey? And she went, "Yes." I was like, "Oh, fine, okay, yes, that's more context." But yes, it's not a very serious podcast most of the time.
Oh, I love that. I'll share that with the your book reading fans in our WhatsApp group, because everyone needs everyone's on the like podcast hunt at the moment, looking for sort of new and different sort of podcasts to listen to, and this one sounds interesting. But true crime. So I did this interview, I don't know what to call it, show. Let's call it show. With Zoe Safair on Friday. What day are we today? Friday. Yeah, she listens to true crime too. I'm trying to remember the name of the because I talked to her about Serial. You know, that Serial podcast about Adnan Syed. Have I got that right? Yeah. And yeah, she's into the same thing. If you listen to her episode back, you'll be like, we're on the same page.
Good. Yeah. There's lots out there. Yeah, there's lots. You're never going to run out of true crime podcasts.
I love that. Hearing that second time. Maybe I'm missing out. But and then so next one. Who is your biggest inspiration?
I don't know. I probably have had lots throughout the years, I would say. Not sure there's one person particularly. I think I admire people who are human. Does that make sense? So I've never really aspired to be a I'm showing my age here. I never really wanted to be a shouty corporate boss with shoulder pads and heels and that kind of thing. I very much more wanted to have somewhere that was fun to be working, and so places like that make me inspired. My accountant actually runs the most lovely business, and I once had to. She was desperate for some help with her inbox, and she's like, "Can you help me file my inbox?" And she's one of life's very organised people. She files her sent items, a concept which I am just not familiar with.
Gosh.
Anyway, I know. Anyway, I was filing these emails, by client, by whatever. And I rang her and I went, "Oh my God, your emails are making me want to cry. It's lovely. You're so nice to each other, even when it's can you not do this again because you're a prick." It's a lovely email and said with love. And so that's the kind of business I aspire to be. I particularly want to be the next Richard Branson, really.
Yeah, totally fair enough. What one word would you say best describes an assistant?
Awesome. Yeah, I think so. I think a good assistant, of which I have many, many, many on the team. I am the least good assistant on the team, which is why I should not do holiday cover, but more than I do. Watching them create calm out of chaos, and how they support and really lift up, but in a... So I describe assistants as a second brain that we use for. And we do that and cheerlead for them and get shit done. And I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
It's an amazing job. And I think people that love it absolutely love it. Right? It's just the best feeling, getting somebody from that place of stress and carnage to, I know what's happening, I know where I'm going, I've got everything, all I need to do is go and do the thing I do. And I think being that person is just brilliant.
Yeah, well, it's hugely rewarding, isn't it? If you're an assistant and it's sort of you found it's your thing and your career path, and I just think it's the most rewarding job ever, because like you say, you just get that satisfaction from sort of helping someone get to where they want to be.
Yeah, I mean, I never planned on being an assistant ever. Once upon a time, I wanted to start a networking called Tapas, which was going to be the Accidental PA Society, because I didn't want to be a PA. I had no secretarial skills. I still have no secretarial skills. I don't have a typing speed. I can't even touch type. But I fell into it by accident, and I used to be a restaurant manager. And it's very similar to being a restaurant manager. You just have to organise things and plan things and fit stuff in like Jenga. And I just, once I discovered it, I was just like, oh my God, this is a dream job. Right?
Yeah. I know what you mean by I work behind a bar, so it's not quite the restaurant manager, but it's the same sort of thing. It's just like going above and beyond. Like if a customer asks for something and you're like, yeah, I can do that. Let me just like run to the local Tesco's and I'll make you whatever you want and I'll come back. But I know what you mean in a way, because it's just sort of just saying yes and just being like that person who puts it all together. But I think it's a fantastic role. And so next, are you a tea or coffee drinker?
I'm a both. I am tea first thing, then a coffee, and then tea for the rest of the day. Maybe one more coffee. Yeah, I have quite a ritualised morning, I realise, which is not what I plan necessarily. But when I go to the gym, I take tea for the way to the gym. I do my workout, and I have a nice frothy coffee on the way home. And
do you? Every day?
Oh, not every day, no. But
I was going to say, woof.
Yeah, no. When I'm at home, I mostly have tea. I do have one of those, not a George Clooney, but a similar thing, and I do froth my milk up because I'm obviously used to working in restaurants, so I'm a barista, which, believe it or not, came in handy once I went to a networking meeting and it started at 7:30 and the bloke from the pub hadn't turned up because he forgot we were coming, so I ended up being the barista.
Did you?
I was like, I think I can still remember how to do this, hang on, let me just do some beans. And then somebody said, "Can I have a flat white?" And I'm like, "No, they hadn't." I don't know how that works. You can have a cappuccino or a latte.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't have a flat white. I don't understand them.
The skills do come in handy. All those skills you learn. You were the talk of that networking dude. Everyone would have remembered you from that one.
Yeah, so the day Kathy had to make the coffee.
Yeah. I do think we've all become quite like divas with our coffees now. If you go somewhere and they go, "Do you want hot or cold milk?" and you're like, "Is that it? Where's the frothy milk?
Where's my froth?" Yeah.
Exactly. And so are you Slack or Teams?
Slack. Hard Slack. Hard
Zoom.
anti-Teams.
Zoom or Google Meet?
Zoom.
Same. Favorite restaurant or takeaway?
Oh, pizza. I love pizza.
Oh yeah, pizza. I'm a Pizza Express. I'm not gonna lie, is always a winner.
Yeah. Or Zizzi's. Yeah, like Zizzi's. Are they still going?
I don't know. There used to be one in Peterborough. I've never been.
They're sort of. So I used to work in an Italian restaurant, which doesn't
Yeah,
exist anymore, called Cafe Ine.
yeah.
And I used to horrify the chefs by insisting on having pineapple on a pizza. And if I really wanted to horrify them, I'd also add banana. And
No
yeah, I've seen Italian men cry.
banana. Wait,
Banana, olives, and pineapple. It's the best.
I've never seen that or heard of that.
Yeah, it's a thing. It's the olives and the banana really work well together with the cheese. I can't.
Oh my God, that's so funny. You know, when you go to restaurants and you do make your own pizza, do they look at you like,
Oh,
huh?
yeah, nobody ever has banana. I don't think I've ever done it in a restaurant. I mean, when I worked in a restaurant, I could pop next door to waitress and get a banana and hand it to
Yeah.
the chefs, and then they would look at me and go, oh, please
Oh
don't.
my God, I love. Do you take a banana in your bag just in case you get you get there and they're like, no, we haven't got one.
No, I don't think I've ever. If I get a pizza at home, I will kind of add my own custom topping. I'm a vegetarian, so
Yeah.
I tend to just get a margarita and customize it to
Oh
my
my
own.
God, that's so funny. To be fair, I'm with you on the pineapple, but I've never done. I've never had banana on pizza.
Yeah, I do find you need the olives with it to cut through the sweetness of it.
No taken. I'll be trying that this weekend.
I
And
have seen it
then,
in a restaurant once or twice.
with
Yeah,
you.
yeah, yeah. Not in this country, but in Europe, I've definitely seen it. Probably designed for children, but never
Well,
mind.
the next time I see it, you're the only person I'll be thinking of. I'll be like, Kathy once said about this, and they'll be like, really? And so two more. Name a fellow assistant who deserves a shout out.
Claire Ennion. She is on my team. She's one of my team leads, and I do not know. And she co-hosts the podcast on occasion. Watching how she juggles stuff is like it's a work of art.
Yeah.
She's a pure swan. You know, it's all calm, 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 and underneath she must just be going.
Yeah.
She's great.
God, Claire sounds fantastic. I think I need some Claire in my life. And then finally, what do you want to do more of in 2025?
I want to do more holidays. 2025. More holidays.
More holidays. So I
More
didn't hear what you
holidays.
said. More holidays. Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah. I had a goal, not last year but the year before. One of my goals for the year was to do something different and fun every month, like an
Yeah.
outing or a concert or a play or
Yeah.
something. Because you have to plan these things, and if you don't get around to planning them, they
Yeah.
just won't happen, right? So I've done the same this year, but with weekends away and holidays, like not every month. But um, I'm very bad at taking time off, which I think is a curse if you're freelance.
Yeah.
And even more of a curse if you don't have children, because obviously a lot of people have to take off school holidays, whereas I don't. So um, there was one time I had 2 weeks off last year for my 50th birthday, and that was the first time I've not worked in 11 years, I think.
Oh my gosh. And also a 2 weeker as well is a real like, did you find it just a real reset? You got back and you're like, yeah.
Yeah, and I went to Bali as well. So I mean, I did have my phone. I
Oh my
deliberately didn't take it out. I
gosh.
locked my work phone in the safe.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
didn't
you're like,
take
bye,
yeah,
bye world.
yeah, it really was. And no, it was amazing, and it just proved that it can work without me, which was a lesson that I probably have been being told for 5 years and just been going, no, 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 I'm indispensable. I'm totally not
Yeah.
indispensable.
Well, I think because you put in the groundwork, you've created something that actually, when you step back for that 2 weeks, it must have in a way been really nice for you because you were like, now I've built this, I actually can step back
Yeah,
for these 2 weeks. And if anything, it was just like a nice reassurance that yeah, it took you 5 years
yeah,
to do.
might be longer, yeah. But yes, it is entirely doable and worth doing. And I think I'm one of those people. Even when I was working in a proper job,
Yeah,
I would always check my emails and my phone when I was
yeah,
out because I hate that not knowing what you're coming back to. I'm one of
yeah,
those. Like there seem to be two breeds of people. There are those who will turn the phone off, not literally look at it until Monday morning when they're back in the office at 9 o'clock.
mm,
And I've always been there. No, if something's going to jump up and bite me on the backside, I want to know about it
yeah,
early so I can prepare for it because I would just be worrying that it's going to
yeah,
happen the Monday when I get back and it will be too late to do anything about it.
yeah,
So I've always been a email checker while I'm away. So my VA and I now have a system where she has my Gmail account and anything that she goes, Kathy, this would make Kathy sweat. She needs to see this. she will email me at Gmail. So I know that if there is a screamer, I'm going to see it. It's the not seeing it that would worry me. So that system really works for me. And we use it for quite a lot of clients, actually. Same sort of principle when we do inbox management for their holidays. It's like, if we think you need to see it and you will give us a download of, what constitutes an emergency in your world that you want to know about, we'll forward that to you. So you don't need to check your emails in case there is a thing, because we're doing the in case there is a thing. You just go away and we'll get rid of all the others. Because the problem is, once you're in your inbox looking for the emergency,
I know, then you're sucked in.
I might as well file that. Oh, that's a quick one. I'll just reply to that. Before you know it, you've lost an hour of your life.
Yeah. I think, I'm more on your wavelength. I always have to check in. But I think that's a really nice thing for your clients to have when they're away, because actually it then means you can relax, because like you say, you don't have to be checking every now and then just to check if there's something's gone wrong or
That's always the worry, isn't it? It's usually clients, it's new business, an opportunity they don't want to miss. Or something's gone awry somewhere that someone else is doing, and those are the two big things you kind of need to know about. And new business, I'm less worried about, because somebody else can put a meeting in when I'm back. Right? There's not usually any great urgency with that.
Yeah, well, I think what you've created and what you've done in your last 11 years as a VA in the journey is incredible. I mean, you've done so much, including the 2 books, the podcast, the 30 assistants. It's crazy. I think for anyone looking to hire an assistant, it's a massive inspiration, because it's a real success story. So thank you so much for taking us through more of the details and being on the show.
You're welcome. I hope it was interesting. Thank you so much for having me.